KOCT program underwriters are not affiliated with the City of Oceanside. This program is underwritten in part by Waste Management of North County in Oceanside. We are dedicated to serving customers and community as a safe, comprehensive service provider, a good corporate citizen, and a responsible environmental steward. Think green. Think Waste Management. You are watching KOCT's North County Roundtable. On this edition, our guests include Councilmember for the City of Oceanside, Esther Sanchez, Carlsbad Mayor Matt Hall, 76th District Assemblyman Rocky Chavez.
Welcome to the all-new North County Roundtable. I'm your host tonight, Alison St. On this edition of North County Roundtable, we'll be speaking with Councilmember for the City of Oceanside, Esther Sanchez, about the Council's mayoral decision and about how that might affect upcoming elections. Our next guest will be the 76th District Assemblyman Rocky Chavez, here to discuss California state legislative issues and his possible run for federal office. Our final guest will be the Mayor of Carlsbad, Matt Hall, here to share his opinions regarding the state of affairs in Carlsbad. So our first guest is Councilmember Esther Sanchez. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely, Alison. Thank you for inviting me.
So this is a very exciting year, this midterm election year.
It's a crazy year.
Particularly in Oceanside, where
Yes.
Mayor Wood has just retired as of the beginning of this month. So we have a mayor's position that is open. We also know that you are running for a supervisor's seat. That's the county supervisor's seat.
Yes.
And we have elections coming up in June. So I want to start by asking you.
Right around the corner.
You can't run for both.
No.
So what are you
true.
going to run for?
Well, several months ago was when I started to look at the County Board of Supervisors race. I knew that since Horn was retiring, it was 24 years. We had our relationship with the county could have been better, I think. There certainly are a lot of funds that I think Oceanside was not getting. Homeless issues, oh my gosh, we really wanted to partner more and more with the county and get the funds that have been actually allocated to homeless and the mental health. I was also a county employee for 20 years. Thought that I could bring a lot to the table in terms of being in the inside. And how, knowing how things work, and then, making things better for all of us. So I entered the race.
Okay, this is Bill Horn's seat.
Yes,
well,
after
Bill
24
Horn
years,
is
he's retiring. I don't know if he's running for anything else, but he's leaving the County Board of Supervisors, and now we have term elections too at the county.
And it just so happens that another member of Oceanside City Council is also running for that seat, Jerry Kern. Has it been difficult for you to decide, well, which shall I go for? Shall I go for the mayor's seat or shall I go for the county supervisor's seat?
The mayor's seat was not even, it wasn't even a consideration. Mayor Jim Wood had made it really clear that he wanted to come back. I've worked with Jim for many years, since he was elected in 2002, and we've worked together so well. I felt that he was doing a very good job for the city as the city's leader. So I have to say, I did, it caught me by surprise that he decided to retire. I understood, it was very difficult for him. It's in terms of this whole therapy, in communicating, great mind there, but it's in the communications that he needed to really work on. So.
But I think a lot of people were in some ways relieved for his sake when he decided that he really needed to take care of
what's best for him. He decided, I believe, on what was best for himself.
And so now the city has a situation of what to do and how to find another mayor, either appoint one or elect one. Do you have a position on those two options?
I prefer, this is, Oceanside is the third largest city. There are, in the county, there are 170,000 people in Oceanside. And we're actually just into it maybe a little over a year of a 4-year term. So for me, it's such an important position, the leadership of our city, that I do believe that the people should have a right to vote on the issue of who should be the mayor.
So you're
3
leaning
people
in favor of an election rather than an appointment at this point?
Unless there's someone who I would feel very comfortable, who would could lead us, you know, just down the middle. I can't think of anyone. The mayor asked us to consider a couple of people. I did put out one name, and I didn't see anyone on the council, kind of seconding that emotion.
Zach Beck, was that? Or
Zach Beck, yes, who's basically been helping to run the meetings. He's been doing a very great job. He's been in office now 5 years.
So I know that the City Council on the 24th of this month is inviting people to come to City Council if they're interested in being appointed as mayor. Would you entertain appointing someone, or do you feel like the feedback you've been getting so far is more towards electing a new mayor?
I've gotten lots of calls for an election. I've actually gotten calls asking me to run as well. I have to say Oceanside is very important to me, as is the rest of the county, but it is a place where it's my hometown, and I am concerned about the future. With Mayor Jim Wood, I felt that he would steer us in the right direction, and unfortunately now that he's gone, I'd really like to see someone who could make sure that the economic viability of the city is maintained.
So if it were an election, would you really feel better about an election in June? Because the city has been without a mayor for almost a year, and we have the choice, June or November. Which way would you
Right, state
prefer?
law requires us to decide, first consider an appointment, and then secondly, if you can't, then go ahead and set it for an election. Our city attorney has advised us that if we go beyond February 7th, then it's going to have to go into November.
So I guess that's my question is, do you feel like it's important to get this position on the ballot soon, or would you let it slide beyond February the 7th and go in November?
I think in terms of policy, we know that there's usually a very low turnout in June, especially on an off presidential year, very low turnout. So I probably would prefer November so that more people can be involved. But either way, I'd like to see us resolve the issue and move forward.
And at this point in June, you will be on the ballot for the county supervisor for Bill Horn's position. Is that right?
Right. The deadline is not here yet for either of them. I think that's why the city attorney told us, well, we got to decide by the February 7th deadline because we need to get that information to the registrar of voters. But so we'll see.
So right
is there
now,
someone out there that would be a great, yes, this is the person that could lead?
You might still appoint someone, depending on who you see on the 24th.
We could. I'm just one vote out of 4.
So let me just ask you about the county supervisor's race,
Yes.
in which case you would move away from Oceanside City Council into county government. I understand that you have not actually raised very much money for this race, and it is a county-wide race, so you would need somebody to campaign. Can you explain, how you think you're going to win without raising much money?
As it is, I've always raised the money that I need to run for election. I've now run 5 times, so and I've gotten the most votes in Oceanside. Yeah, it's a larger area. I did have a personal setback where my mom passed away. She ended up. But I have every belief and confidence in myself and the people that I'm working with, who are working on my campaign, that we could do it. Absolutely. Okay. There's not a lot. There's actually not much choice right now, and I think people want to have a choice.
This is a good point, and you are the only Democrat running for that position at the moment.
Yes, and I'm the only one really questioning this whole idea about building out in the middle of nowhere where we don't have fire or police, essential services, which will then cost the county a lot more to deliver.
So if you come in one of the top 2, then you would be running for that seat in November.
Right.
If you don't come in one of the top 2, is there an option then perhaps for you to decide, well, maybe I'll run for mayor in November?
Whatever I decide will basically be probably earlier than that, because I don't want to take, if there's someone who would like to run for County Board of Soups who can provide that other option for the county. I mean, this is, I think there are so many new things happening. in the county that we need to address in a, I think, more direct way. The homelessness, the mental health issues, the development issues, the services. In fact, a lot of the county workers, I've been listening to them, and they actually have to use county services because they just don't make enough money. Okay. So I think that there needs to be more infusion of money into the economy for the county in order to make more.
And that's what you would be hoping if you were on the county, to be bringing more resources into Oceanside. Yes. Now, one of the issues, just focusing on what you would be doing here in Oceanside before you start focusing on campaigning, one of the issues is, I think, this idea of development and housing. Now, there is obviously a shortage of affordable housing. Everybody is talking about the homeless problem getting bigger, even middle-class people not having anywhere that they can afford to buy. Where do you think in Oceanside that we should have more density?
Well, bottom line is Oceanside is actually doing more than any other city in the North County to provide housing. We actually everything's relative. We are still the most affordable place on the coast to live, but yes, housing costs are rising. It's obviously much better to do it along transportation corridors, so that we can have people live closer to the services, so that
like the Sprinter line, for example.
Yes, so that way the services don't cost as much. We build out in the middle of nowhere, like say in our agricultural lands. The cost of delivering those services skyrockets.
So you actually have a position on Morrow Hills, and we may have an initiative on the November ballot about whether to change the zoning so that our agricultural areas become more open to development. Talk a bit about where you stand on that.
Well, SOAR, which is Save Our Open Space and Agricultural Resources, is really about letting the people decide whether these big projects should take place, right? We had a project that happened next to the mission, which is called Villa Storia, and
you were
there was
opposed to
not.
That,
I was, and that's because I reviewed the financial statement by the developer that it would cost the city $1.1 million a year to deliver services. So in essence, the citizens of Oceanside is going to have to subsidize that project. And that's just not fair to the rest of us, right? And that's to start, because those are services, $1.1 million for the life of that project. So we know costs go up.
You would be in favor then of an initiative that would preserve the zoning out in Morrow Hills and forbid more development?
Yes, because we are actually getting into partnership to develop agritourism, thinking about ways to make economic development and economic viability of those farms to go forward. So to put housing in the middle of nowhere is counterproductive. It's actually going to cost us. It's actually not in our general plan.
So let me ask you a related question, because a lot of farmers are having a hard time keeping going with the water situation, the cost of water. One of the things a lot of the farmers in Morrow Hills would like to see is perhaps being able to grow marijuana now that it's legal. Where do you stand on the possibility of regulating marijuana in Oceanside?
I think that everybody has to be at the table in order to address all the impacts. Like, for example, in the ad hoc committee, I was very concerned the way it was developed, because 2 council members means no one else can join in the conversation, in the dialogue.
But that's what an ad hoc committee is to have just a small amount of the city council, and then you would weigh in when they bring their conclusions back to the council.
But I mean, they had no staff, no input from the police department, from the fire department, from the planning department. They had absolutely zero input from city staff.
So you're not in favor of their recommendations?
I feel that it has to go back out so that more people can get involved in the dialogue. Right now, staff is weighing in. It certainly is, what was approved were dispensaries, which you cannot tax. And there's apparently there's a big misunderstanding that somehow this dispensaries will increase the city's coffers by millions of dollars.
Medicinal marijuana you cannot tax.
Cannot
yes,
tax.
That's right.
The only thing that we can do is charge in terms of business license, and well, how do you charge for that? Is it going to cost a half a police officer, a code enforcement officer, firefighters' response, because when you have edibles, marijuana in the form of the packages they look like candy. So when kids start to eat that, they end up, and I guess this is happening in Colorado, kids end up in the hospital.
In the couple of minutes we have left, though, if in fact there's going to be an initiative in November about marijuana as well, are you afraid of losing control of, the voters might decide they want to have marijuana?
I don't know if there's going to be an initiative. I haven't heard anything, but what I do believe is that this dialogue needs to be citywide, and we need to address the impacts to police, to fire, to youth. I've been working with youth for a very long time on alcohol and drug abuse. So, of course, it included marijuana. It's not about adults, adults understand what they're doing, but as to our youth and the future economic viability of the city in terms of keeping our kids in school, keeping them on the track.
Because in some ways you have a perhaps what one might call a more conservative approach to legalizing marijuana, whereas Jerry Kern, who is a Republican, has a bit more of a liberal approach and says, let's regulate it and let's maybe tax it. So,
well, except that that's not what was presented or was approved. No tax, unfortunately.
We just have 1 minute left, and I just wanted to ask you quickly, because we're getting into district elections.
Yes.
And so you wouldn't actually run for your seat again until 2020, is that right, if you were running for your seat?
Actually, the district that I'm in would be up in 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So 2020, I would not be able to run in my own district.
Do you feel good about having district elections now in Oceanside?
I think that it was it would have been better to have a dialogue and put it on the ballot and get people to talk about it and to approve it. I of course didn't like the way it happened, but I do believe that when government is closer to people, better things happen.
You'll be representing a smaller number of people rather than the whole city. You'll be representing your district.
Well, you'll be able to go to the door and knock and have a good conversation with people and find out what really the issues are.
Good.
So, yeah.
Well, Councilmember Sanchez, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Now we have to take a short break, and stay tuned. We have more conversation coming up on the North County Roundtable.
If back pain is keeping you from doing what you love, we want you to know about the Mazor Robotics Renaissance System, an innovation in spine surgery first offered in San Diego at Tri-City Medical Center. Meet Dr. Payam Moazes. Dr. Moazes is among the most experienced surgeons using the Mazor Robotics Renaissance Guidance System. This system is 99% accurate, requires a shorter hospital stay, is safer and less invasive. Recover faster. Get back to doing what you love. Tri-City Medical Center. Advanced healthcare for you.
The Oceanside Public Library is proud to offer you best-selling and classic ebooks and digital audiobooks, available 24/7 by visiting the library's website. You can browse the collection, borrow with your library card, and enjoy on your computer, tablet, smartphone, or e-reader. Many borrowed ebooks and audiobooks can be enjoyed immediately in your web browser. Titles automatically expire at the end of the lending period. There are no late fees. With hundreds of popular titles to choose from, this collection is guaranteed to have something for everyone. You can enjoy bestsellers and classic literature, stories for kids and teens, and much more anytime, anywhere. All you need is your library card. In addition, the library offers classes to help you get started borrowing ebooks and digital audiobooks with your device. For class information or for more details about ebooks or digital audiobooks, visit our website at oceansidepubliclibrary.org or call us at 760-435-5600.
Oceanside Spectrum is a unique talk show that seeks to shine light on local nonprofit organizations in San Diego's North County. Guests from these nonprofits are interviewed by host Elaine Swan about upcoming events, volunteer opportunities, and much more. Oceanside Spectrum airs Monday through Friday on Channel 18 at 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. If your nonprofit organization would like to promote an upcoming event, attract new members, or share your good works, please call 760-722-4433 or email us at koct@koct.org.
use motor oil, a cocktail of toxins. Dispose carefully, you got lots of options. Never the trash, the drain, or the ground. That's insane and it ain't safe and sound. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city.
Recycle used oil and filters at certified collection points in Oceanside. For locations, see greenoceanside.org.
Hello, my name is Amber Tervroot, and you're watching KOCT, your community channels. I'm a friend of KOCT. You should be too.
Welcome back to North County Roundtable. I'm your host, Alison St. John, and here joining me now is the 76th District Assemblyman, Rocky Chavez.
Hello,
Thanks
how
so
you doing,
much for joining
Alison?
us again. So now, you are in a position also, we were just talking about it being an exciting election year. We had a big shock earlier this year when Congressman Darrell Issa suddenly announced that he was not going to be running for the 49th Congressional District again, and you immediately jumped in. What makes you think that you stand a good chance to go to Congress?
Well, we've known, we figured this was going to happen.
How did you figure that? Nobody else did.
I think a lot of people did.
Okay.
We, back in, after the 2016 election, there was rumors that possibly Darrell Issa would get an appointment. And he had mentioned to me that that was something he was trying to do, so I had put together a team to get ready to go. But as the months went on and it didn't happen, we kept the team together. But I was following with interest this Flip the 49th effort that was going on.
So you think it's the change in his constituency, the fact that these coastal cities here, including Oceanside, are becoming a little bit more blue?
I think there's a lot of things. That's one of them, but I also think it's just the rancor of politics in the country right now. Mm-hmm. So, because as you know, he's not the only congressman in the United States that's taken a walk. There's quite a few. Yeah. And so we anticipated, so back in November, we actually polled it. And so once and I saw the results of the poll, and it was clear to me that it would be tough for him. And along the poll, we looked at the issues, and we also looked at my ability to fill it. And
well, let's look at some of the issues, because I mean, you do have a reputation of being somewhat more middle of the road, moderate Republican. So, I mean, for example, Obamacare, would you have voted to dismantle that like Mr. Issa did, or would you have voted to support it?
Actually, I don't like the term moderate. I like to think thoughtful.
Okay. Thoughtful, all right.
So, because every issue needs to be dealt with separately. And as you recall, back when I was doing the U.S. Senate, looking at that question came up all the time. And I haven't changed that position for 2 years. So, short answer to it, I would have fixed the Affordable Care Act. I would not have deleted it. Because I think the Affordable Care Act meets some really serious needs, in particular of children. It also meets a particular need of a catastrophic event. There should be no situation where a family would have to lose their house to raise money to take care of a loved one. I thought that was important. Preconditions, I think something that need to be addressed. Having friends that I've had that have children that are, have some really serious medical issues, it can destroy a family. And so there were things in the Affordable Care Act I supported, and so I wouldn't have done that.
Okay, I mean, we know that Issa himself also didn't really, he wasn't completely happy with it, and then in the end he voted for it because he went with the party. In some cases you have gone against your own party in order to do what you felt was right. Do you think that's something that would come up a lot if you were in Congress?
I always find that interesting to ask that question, that when you get elected to an office, you need to know your constituents, understand the party didn't elect me. A bunch of people in the back room in D.C. didn't elect me, or in this case, an assembly member in Sacramento, they didn't elect me to be an assembly member. Mm-hmm. The people in my district elected me. Mm-hmm. And so it's incumbent to listen to people and represent the people that you have. And I've been doing this now since 2002. And I have found that if you take the time to study the issues, take even more time to listen and keep your mouth shut and think, then you can be in a good place. And then when you're stopped on the street and say, why did you vote for A, B, C, or D, you can articulate it. And generally people go, okay, I agree.
So give us some examples of issues that you feel that you have a stand that the constituents would support.
I'll give you something that I actually did in Sacramento. when I first got elected in 12, Governor Brown had put a program together to eliminate adult education. It was a part of a budget cut. And I had taken the time when I was a council member to actually go visit adult education, see, you know, what are we doing here? In my research, part of the study aspect, the first educational institutions California had back in the formation of the state was adult education to teach Californians English, because we had a lot of people in California that did not speak English, and so we had these centers around the state to teach Californians how to read and write and understand English. What a bizarre issue, because I think that's what we do today in adult education. So when we're going to cut this, so in a hearing in Sacramento, I started asking questions about, well, why do we have adult education? What do they do? What's the history? It became such a big deal that the governor's people flipped, and now we have the consortiums. And quite frankly, it's one of the proudest things I can say. He said, when you left the assembly, what did you accomplish? I saved adult education.
Well, education has always been one of your things, even when you were on the Oceanside City Council. But education is more of a state responsibility than a federal one. So I'm not sure how you feel like you'd be able to follow up on that passion of yours at the federal level.
There's one I really care a great deal about, and that's sequester. I think we have the largest training center for the Marine Corps right here in Camp Pendleton within this district. You need to look at the past year and seeing all the incidents we've had with the readiness issue of the Navy and the Marines, which are costing lives. When I was in the Marine Corps, we had what they used to call a 4-to-1 ratio, that for every time that you're out, you'd have 3 times back in to recover, to get to know your family, to retrain yourself, to prepare to go. It was a 4-to-1. Right now, because we have underfunded our military, they're doing a 1-and-1. Those poor young people are going, and when they get back, they're getting ready to go again. The stress it causes on the families, the stress it's causing on the equipment, the inability to get up training to the standards that you need to have, it's
So what is it that you think needs to happen?
They need to do it. They need to get out of sequester and get a budget.
Okay.
And as I've often said, what does Congress do that you don't do in state? We do foreign affairs. We do the Department of Defense. If we want to be involved everywhere in the world, which I think we need to relook at that, then you need to fund it, because we are taking the lives of young women and men who are serving in the military because we're not funding it appropriately.
Well, we all know you were in the colonel in the Marine Corps,
right.
And I believe there's, what, 50,000 veterans living in the 49th District, so that being a former Marine might be to your advantage, I guess. But there are veterans who oppose Darrell Issa, for example, and say, you know, the VA, for example, is not being funded properly. What would you say to veterans that you could do for them that you can't do maybe here at the state level?
Well, they're right. There are problems with the VA. And as the undersecretary, when I was the undersecretary in the state, I met with all of them. And I can tell you the structure of how they fund people here in the VA isn't good for us. Let me give you an example. VA, any organization needs a strong leader on the top to take care of it. The people who are out here in California rotate at a very rapid pace. If I was a congressman, I would say, whoever's going to be in the medical facility or be in the comp and pen facility in San Diego, that person coming there would have to be here a minimum of 3 years, not rotating every year. Because when people are there for a longer time, then they can set the standards, higher standards to go. However, these gentlemen and women are what they call senior executive services, SESs, and the closer you are to the flagpole, DC, the higher your rank is and the more money you get. So we are a door going through, and so we never have consistent leadership. If I was a congressman, I'd stop that.
So there's a few things that the administration has been doing which look like they're actually targeting California. For example, the idea to restart leasing oil wells off the California coast, to start prosecuting marijuana when the state has just voted to make it legal. Where do you stand in relation to the administration's actions that appear to be targeting California residents?
I would, as far as the oil issue, having been born and raised in California and knowing the issues of Santa Barbara that we had before, I would not support drilling off the coast of California. And there's a strong reason for it. Technologies have gone so far forward where fossil fuels may have been a great thing in 1910, but today with technology, wind has really taken over, solar's taken over. There's plans right now to actually electrify the grid of California so that we operate our vehicles like that, because one of the biggest emissions is actually transportation elements. And just this week, and this is going to sound funny, this week I had some people in my office telling me that they're going to be able to produce energy through fusion. Now fusion, I heard when I was in 9th grade, I remember people saying fusion and think, oh yeah, right, this is going to happen. And I said, well, what are the risks? And they said that there's none. And it's a clean power energy. They say they can have it up by 2024, and they're actually in Orange County, and I have a visit in a few weeks to go visit them. My point is, you need energy. That's what societies do. And we have the great situation where we have the greatest universities in the nation, innovating technology. We can produce energy with having not used fossil fuel.
Do you feel like a lot of what the Trump administration is doing are things that you support? I mean, that's one example of one where you would perhaps not support.
Well, let's go to the marijuana one. I've never smoked a joint in my life. You know, being a jock when I was in high school and going into the Marine Corps, I never have. But the people voted for it. And back to our first question we asked, my job is to represent my people. And if my people say this is what they're going to do, and then I'm going to support them on that. As you know, the biggest issues we have with marijuana, there's a number of them. One of the most important issue is banking, because there's a lot of cash. And there's bank laws against putting money into the federal system. That needs to be corrected. There's issues on safety. If you start building these up, you know, it's a very, it's a lucrative target for crime. So how are you going to control that? If you talk to people up in Northern California, they'll tell you about the runoff of pesticides for these areas actually pollutes the water. So it's going to go forward, but it needs to have, understand safety, it needs to understand regulations so it doesn't destroy the environment. How do you have banking so that you don't have people in there you don't want to have? But as I was telling somebody, if you look at prohibition when it went away, it took some decades till we got it figured out from the speakeasy to a restaurant and a bar. I submit to you, as far as marijuana, the same thing's going to happen.
So I can't resist asking you whether you believe that climate change is partly man-made and whether you believe that sustainable energy is therefore essential.
I think that argument has been decided 10 years ago.
Okay.
It's clearly, it's a real threat. You know, the military, in the Pacific Command, if you look at what their threat is, and they have responsibility to look at threats, one of the top 3 threats that they have identified is sea rise. Because when you have sea rise, especially in the Pacific and the atolls in the Philippines and Indonesia, then you start having displaced people. When you have displaced people, migrants, you start having unhealthy situation with terrorism, with disease, and all types of other things.
So it's a national security issue, really. Yeah.
Yes, it's a world issue as far as worrying about the safety of people. I mean, so to me, I've been, for the 5 years I've been in Sacramento, I've been on a speaking tour as the Republican who believes in that climate is an issue that needs to be addressed, and the best ways to do it is with technology, and it needs to be done in a thoughtful way so we don't destroy our economy.
And you, in fact, supported Governor Brown's cap and trade policy, which I think put you at odds with a lot of your Republican colleagues. Is that something that you feel might perhaps stand in your way to get support for the 49th Congressional District?
No, because what cap and trade was really about was jobs. The year before we did the cap and trade, there was a bill that was passed in the California Assembly that capped the impact of energy on the industries. And if that was to continue, these industries would no longer be able to operate in the state. So when the oil industry came forward, oil, Chevron, when the manufacturers came forward, when the Chamber of Commerce came forward and said, if we don't make a mechanism like we had before for us managing this process, we're going to be run out of the state. Which Republican will stand up and help us save our jobs? Me. And as we did this and went through it and started educating people, I'll share with you a short story. In the caucus, one gentleman set up and said, anybody who goes in cap and trade, I will personally go against. And I asked him, I said, so tell me, what's the difference between command and control and a market-based solution on cap and trade? And when he stuttered around, he couldn't answer it, and I said, I would suggest that you not threaten people until you know what it is. Few people I ever met that actually understood the business aspect of cap and trade to save jobs, to keep our businesses here and deal with the threat of climate change.
Okay, so now you've got quite a few people who are also running for the 49th.
It's great, isn't it?
And I know you always like competition, but Orange County is a lot more conservative, shall we say, than the part of the 49th that includes Oceanside and the coastal cities. How do you think that you might be able to convince people up in Orange County that you are their candidate and still appeal to people here in Oceanside and down in San Diego?
It's really not. You deal with issues that people care about. The issue.
Get specific about some issues that you think.
Well, the Department of Defense, military,
okay.
jobs. They care about that. There's a lot of military that lives in San Clemente and Dana Point and San Juan Capistrano, and they're going to see the Marine Colonel. And I think people right now, Democrat and Republican, and the largest group is a decline to state, is tired of this rancor and fighting. You're going to see a flyer that saying somebody who works for the betterment of the city and is not just on one side, and it's going to be a statement from Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jerry Brown say, we both agree Rocky Chavez gets things done for his community, Democrat and Republican.
Okay, well, in the last couple of minutes that we have, talk a bit about what you hope to get done. If you're actually moving on, you may only have another less than a year in the Assembly. What are your priorities?
Well, the biggest issue I'm going to really be pushing is a career technical education, something I started off some time ago. We know that not all children are going to become lawyers and doctors, and we know that with the technological advances going in our city, especially in our area here in the pharmaceuticals, you can get a great job, $60, $70, $80, $100,000 a year in the pharmaceuticals with a degree in understanding the trades. And so there are good jobs out there for kids who are more interested in working with their hands. And so I've worked with the trade, here it is, Republican, working with the trade unions to say, you need people to be carpenters and electricians and plumbers, partner with us in our educational institutions so we can have high school students come and start training with you to get an apprenticeship program. So when they go in the apprenticeship program, when they become a journeyman, they're making significant money by the age of 23. If we start them early in the high schools with the CTE program. My bill puts up $500 million per year for 3 years, as long as the school districts match us to put a program within their districts. It will give an opportunity for children to get jobs and its relevance, and I'm excited about it.
Good. Well, I wish you luck in this last year in the Assembly, and we will see what happens in terms of the election. You have to decide by March 9th if you are actually going to be running for the 49th. You're in?
I'm in.
Because we know that you backed out one time before when you're running for the Senate.
Like I said, I represent 70% of this district. I got a 72% name ID and a positive 4-1 in the poll we just did today. I'm going to win this race.
On that note, Rocky Chavez, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So we're going to take another quick break, but we'll be right back with more North County Roundtable with Carlsbad Mayor Matt Hall.
For over 30 years, KOCT has been a community media resource. KOCT exists because of viewers like you who want and need to stay informed about their community. Only KOCT provides local election coverage and live airing of government meetings. Support this public service by making a tax-deductible donation today. It's easy. Go to KOCT.org, click on the donate button, make a monthly or a one-time donation. Help us help you stay informed about North County. Support your hometown television station today.
Tee off at the Oceanside Municipal Golf Course. Located minutes from downtown Oceanside, the Oceanside Golf Course showcases 18 holes, is open to all, with special consideration for Oceanside residents. Featuring an all-grass driving range, lessons and camps, a full-service grill, and spectacular views. The Oceanside Golf Course is an affordable option for a great day on the green. The course is open every day from 6 a.m. till sunset, located at 825 Douglas Drive. For best rates, book online today. Visit playoceansidegolf.com or call 760-433-1360.
Are you on the hunt for classroom space to teach a yoga class or to hold a meeting? El Corazon has you covered. Our classroom is 3,100 square feet and retractable walls can create 4 smaller rooms to allow different activities to be in session at one time. A wide array of recreational activities, from fine arts to exercise classes, may be accommodated. Both the classroom and the attached outdoor patio are available for rentals 7 days a week. Let us know how many people are in your party, when you want to meet, and we'll have the room set to your needs. For more information and to schedule the facility, please email Parks and Rec Admin Facility Rentals or call 760-435-5533.
Did you know most men take better care of their cars than they do themselves? Nearly 26% of men 18 to 44 years old in the United States do not have a regular source of health care. Make an appointment today to ensure you stay healthy tomorrow. This message is brought to you by Tri-City Medical Center, advanced health care for you.
Welcome back to North County Roundtable here on KOCT. I'm your host, Alison St. John, and our final guest is the Mayor of Carlsbad, Matt Hall. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hall. So you've been the mayor now for 2 terms, and you're hoping to have a third. The thing about Carlsbad is that it's always been not that contentious, the elections, until recently. In fact, Bud Lewis was the mayor for decades. But now you look like you're going to be facing some kind of challenge. And I'm wondering, what do you think it is about Carlsbad that's changing now, that people are perhaps paying more attention to their politics?
Well, I would start by saying that some of the elections prior to mine have been contentious. I can remember 2006 with Buddy and his race. And I would say that this year you might use the word contentious. I look at it as it's an opportunity for the community to look at different candidates, someone who's been here for years and who's followed a plan and ensured the success of Carlsbad, to somebody who is wanting to step forward and get involved and try and perhaps change that award-winning plan.
It's interesting because Corey Schumacher, who's announced that she's going to be running against you, in some ways has taken a position perhaps against some of the changes that were coming down the pike, like the Caruso project, the plan to build a big shopping center on the Agujetti and the lagoon. So, I mean, would you argue that perhaps you're more in favor of growth and development than she?
What I'm in favor of is the growth management plan. It was a plan that was 6 years in the making, and it was a plan that was based on standards. And those standards were backed up with a facilities plan and how to finance those standards. So as we've gone through the years, we have always followed that plan, with 2 exceptions. One is that the cap on the population was going to be 135,000. By today's standards, we're not going to be able to meet that. It's going to be less than 130 because we haven't been able to build to the capacity that we thought we could. The second was open space. Open space was front-loaded way back in the early 2000s. And we were able to do more with open space by front-loading it than perhaps we could have as just built out. So I have followed that plan and always held by those standards. What I would suggest is if the community isn't happy and we hear the sound, we hear their voice, is that rather than try and change a plan that's really at the end, you know, we're getting close to we're at 113, we're going to get to about 126, 128.
You mean like capacity?
Capacity
okay.
in a growth management plan, because they have caps. They have caps in all 4 quadrants and for the city, that we need to sit down and listen to the people, put it out to a committee, and let's think about what we want our vision to be for 2050 and how are we going to finance that.
Well, on the one hand, you have people who don't want to see new development because they're worried about traffic. And then on the other hand, you have people who are desperate to find more affordable housing so their kids can stay in the area. And that would require more housing, more development. So how do you balance that?
So first of all, there was a plan. And we have built to this plan, and the plan was sized for a capacity of 135,000. And we've stayed with that plan. We were supposed to average 400 units per year. We were actually, the last 10 years, We've only averaged about 325 units.
So you're still standing by that plan?
That's the rule of the city today. And I understand change, and I know change will happen, but we have been a city that has followed process and listened to the community, had several committees on all sorts of issues throughout the years. But the reason Carlsbad is what it is today is because we followed a plan, a vision of over 25 years ago and met those standards.
So can you give me an example of perhaps something that's on the table right now in relation to that plan? I believe that your master plan for the Barrio area down there at the village is coming out this week. So talk a bit about how that might change Carlsbad Village, which everybody is familiar with.
So the draft will be out tomorrow, the latest draft. And keep in mind on the Barrio side of things, we've been working on a plan for over 20 years. And there will also be the village plan. We have about 800 units in that plan, and it'll be up to the people to go and take a look at this. And in the case of the Barrio, there's always been so much opposition from the community that we've never got close to consensus, and that's one of the reasons why that plan has never been completed. And so I'm looking forward to the process. I need to disclose that I own property in the Barrio, and my wife owns property in the village.
Does that mean you can't vote on the final?
That means I cannot vote on the plan. And I couldn't vote on previous plans either.
But, you know, when you look at Oceanside, for example, the village has shot up like 7 stories. There's a lot of multi-story houses right down there near the coast, whereas in Carlsbad Village, you know, 2 stories, and people complain if there's 3. Where do you stand on, you know, what should happen to the coastal village there?
So once again, I did not vote on this, but in approximately 2006, 2008 time period, the height of the village was raised to 45 feet. And that was under Mayor Lewis's leadership.
Is that 3 stories or?
No, it has been 45 feet since 2006, 2008.
How many stories is that?
4 stories.
4 stories, okay.
And
so that's what you are going for, really, yeah.
Well, that's
the plan.
That's been in the ordinance for over 10 years.
Right, okay.
So it is what it is. So if they wanted to lessen that, you would have to change the ordinance to bring the height down. So, and that went through full process, full hearing, community weighed in on it, and that is the standard.
So you're facing the fact that maybe there'll be a lot of community opposition to this, but in fact it's the plan that was passed.
It was a past plan. So the new plan, I would suggest to the community, and one of the things that started growth management was growth and a lot of 2-story units being built that look like boxes. And I think what has been great about Carlsbad is in all of its master plans, they've had design elements and criteria that they had to build to that made them look unique. And I would suggest that we would focus perhaps on what design, you know, or multiple designs that you think are acceptable. And it's about the quality of the building that you're building, not just the height.
I wanted to move to another fairly controversial issue, which people in Oceanside have been questioning, which is the adoption of these license plate readers, which are, I believe, in virtually every road into Carlsbad. So if you drive into Carlsbad now, you can be pretty sure that somebody's reading your license plate. And some people feel like this is a real invasion of privacy.
So just for observation, since we started this, and it's been many years ago, we've had them on the police cars, and we've recently installed them on many of the intersections. We have viewed over 9 million license plates. Out of that, we have about over 150 cases where we've caught either stolen cars and or stolen plates. Not 150 cases, we've actually captured 27 stolen vehicles or stolen license plates. What we are seeing happen today in Sacramento with early releases, creating or maintaining safety is becoming more and more difficult. So looking towards technology is one way to try and combat that, and I would say that it is paying off greatly.
So you would continue to defend that program. It was quite expensive as well, wasn't it? So
what price do you put on safety?
In Carlsbad, it seems like you're willing to spend quite a bit on safety.
We will spend whatever we need to maintain our safety.
Good. I just wanted to compare you for a minute to Oceanside, which as a city has, I think like all cities, got a problem with its ballooning pension fund, and that could affect the budget down the line. What can you say about Carlsbad's pension fund?
Every city in the state has the same problem. We were very aggressive back in '09. In fact, Mayor Lewis and myself were recognized by Governor Schwarzenegger for being on the forefront of trying to correct the pension question. Even with everything that we've done, we're still at a point where pensions are probably our #1 concern.
So for things like the license plate reader, which was expensive, but you thought it was worth it, do you feel like Carlsbad is going to need to be tightening its belt in coming years?
At this moment in time, I would say no, but there is a moment in time I would say yes. And I think it's going to be a conversation between not only the city, but the labor groups and the residents of California of what they're willing to spend. Because you will see in the not too distant future, my belief, cities start to fail just over the pension question.
Another big change that's happening to a lot of cities in North County is they're going to district elections. So I know that you voted against it, I think, and,
yes.
and even although you knew that you would be sued by an attorney and lose probably if you fought that, but now that district elections are a reality, how do you think that's going to change Carlsbad?
Obviously, I don't think it will at first, but I think in time, just like you watch San Diego and some of the debates over money, I think it will have a change on the future. Right now, with knowing the council today and how the community thinks, I think it gives a more balance to the community, more balanced representation. And just as an observation, if you go back a few years, the Northwest Quadrant had a mayor and 3 council members living in the Northwest Quadrant, and Councilwoman Ann Kulchin lived in La Costa. So looking to today, and a city that is, instead of being 40 or 50,000, a city of 113,000, I think it does make some sense to have each area of the city represented.
So you're coming around to thinking that it might actually
Yes.
be a positive thing. Okay. We've been talking with our other guests tonight about their political aspirations. You're running for a 3rd term as mayor. Have you considered the possibility of either the 76th Assembly, now that Rocky's out, or the 49th Congressional?
So the first one that the opportunity presented itself was for supervisor, and I said no. Rocky called me when he said he was moving into the congressional race, and I said, Rocky, no. I said, my heart is in Carlsbad. I have no other aspirations. I love my community. I feel that I give value there, and I'm quite happy. I've raised my family there, and I now have my grandkids there. That's what's most important to me.
So you're focusing on the mayor's race, and,
Yes.
and that's it. Good. So what would you say is the thing that you hope to accomplish the most if you remain mayor for another term?
I think we touched on it. Growth management has been an award-winning tool. It's really, when you look at Carlsbad and it's all the success we've had, it's really based around growth management and good leadership that followed those standards. It didn't waver. And when we're at a point in time now where we needed to bring together the community again through a committee and look at what do we want to be in 2050 and start down that path. I would sure like to be part of bringing that committee into its being and look forward to what its outcome might be.
One of the problems is the cost of housing in Carlsbad. It's a very expensive community, like all the coastal communities. Is there any strategy that you would like to see developed to make housing more affordable in Carlsbad?
So once again, I'm going to go back to the plan.
Okay.
Before 1994, we came up with inclusionary housing. That means deed-restricted housing, and we've used the number of 15% for all those years. So what the state is trying to accomplish today, we've been doing it since 1994. It's been part of our growth management ordinance. What I worry about is that this would trigger or break our growth management caps prematurely, and that does cause me concern. I mean, when you get to a density bonus of 35%, that's really pushing the envelope.
We just have a couple of minutes left, and
Sure.
there's a lighter topic that I wanted to just ask you about, the lifeguards on the North Beach, which is between Carlsbad and Oceanside. There were various people who almost drowned up there. Just talk a bit about what the plan is to increase safety there.
We recognize the issue, and we were on it last year. We want to take a little bit more time so we truly understand the issues and what's the best way to address it. My belief is that someday that Carlsbad will have control, if it's whole coastline, that obviously the state controls from Oak Street clear down to Leucadia. If I'm going to get into the lifeguard business, I would hope that we have the same level of service throughout the city and under one central control.
But the state actually does provide lifeguards for the rest of the beach. So doesn't the city have to just bite the bullet and take responsibility for that part of the beach that is not the state's responsibility?
We don't have to. There was no law requiring us to do that. We did that because it was the right thing to do. And with our tourism and whatnot, we want to be known as a safe city. There's also different levels of service. The service that we're providing north of Oak Street is a higher level of service than from Oak Street south. So again, we're trying to understand not just that small portion, but what would it look like if we were able to do the whole program.
Okay. I've just got 1 minute. I'm going to ask you, I've heard rumors that Carlsbad would like a pier, like Oceanside.
That was a dream of Ann Kulchin and Bob Ladwig. I do not think the Coastal Commission would do that. I think what is important and is that our coastline, and as we have sea level rise, that I would hope that, and I've had conversations with Jim Wood, I've continued those conversations with Chuck Lowry, is how jointly we could help protect our coast in a cooperative way.
Oh, that's very good to hear. Okay, we've come to the end of our time, so thank you so much for spending this time with us, Mayor Holt.
And I can't thank you enough for having me. It's been a pleasure.
So thank you for watching this edition of North County Roundtable, and don't forget you can watch or share this episode by going to KOCT.org. Stay informed about your community by watching North County Roundtable. This is going to be an interesting election year coming up, so it'll be important to stay informed. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
KOCT program underwriters are not affiliated with the City of Oceanside. This program is underwritten in part by Waste Management of North County in Oceanside. We are dedicated to serving customers and community as a safe, comprehensive service provider, a good corporate citizen, and a responsible environmental steward. Think green. Think Waste Management.